Well, hello everybody. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world, whether you're in New Zealand or Australia or somewhere a little bit different. Good morning, and thank you for tuning in. Now, I've not done one of these webinars before, so this is a little something different for me. But the reason I'm doing it is that I had a lot of interest in people wanting to learn a little bit about how I managed to build in a literacy study within my personal tutoring space. So this is basically what this webinar or YouTube video or whatever it ends up being is all about. So I have got some notes here that I will be referring to throughout the webinar. And I also am going to be running a slideshow that goes with it as well. So here we go. Let's get stuck in. I will share my screen and we'll get this going. Okay, slideshow. All right, so here we go. Welcome to this tutorial webinar, which showcases the literacy integration study that I did with New Zealand birds. And we're going to delve into a wee bit about what I did and how I made this work. So, just before we get started, in case you don't know much about me, my name is Heather. I'm the director of Love Literacy Limited. And I'm also a private tutor and I'm a sole trader. I operate my tutoring business under Love Literacy Mount Maunganui. So yeah, the services I provide are tutoring services. Plus, I also sell Yeet, the learning resource, which you can see pictured there. And I do have a number of other resources available, like sound packs and lots of free decodable type passages, authentic passages, plus poetry and reader theatre. Um, and some of you may also know that I am the parent of a dyslexic, dysgraphic, and dyscalculic son. And if you do want to learn more about my journey, there is a link on my webpage where I speak about this from human chapters. So I'm just going to pop this up here. So if you do want to find out a little bit more about me, grab your phones now. Click on that QR code that should take you straight through to my website. You can save that for the future and you can read a little bit more about me at your own leisure. So, here we go. What are we going to cover today? So, we're going to look at why I bothered to do this study, the role of background knowledge. We're going to work on we're going to take a look at how I planned the idea, put it all together. We're also going to look at how we align literacy components because bearing in mind, I'm not a classroom teacher and I don't teach curriculum. I am actually a reading, writing, and spelling tutor that provides catch up uh, support for students. We're then going to look at how I worked in a writing craft integration, how I developed text and differentiated that text to fit in with the needs of my students, how I created companion resources that went along with the literacy integration study. How am I monitoring the engagement and growth? Because we're in the final week of the study as well. So I am still monitoring the engagement and growth with this. And we will look at the role of generative AI and how this played quite a big part in what I did. And then we should have time for some personal reflections as well. So as you can see, this is quite a meaty little webinar that I'm doing today. So here we go. Why do the study? So I work with quite a wide range of learners, which are probably many of you who are familiar with me will already know. So at the moment, my youngest learner is in year three, and I have got a few learners who are in year 10. So there is a big range of age groups that I'm working with. And one of the key things that I wanted to do is I wanted to support with building vocabulary. I wanted to support with building sentence structure and background knowledge all at the same time. And my key thing came in with this focus on background knowledge. And if anybody's familiar with The Knowledge Gap by Natalie Wexler, or if anybody is familiar with any of Daniel Willingham's work, or The Science of Learning, you'll know just how integral the role of background knowledge is when it comes to reading, writing, and spelling. So we're just going to take a little look at the role of background knowledge now. So we're going to look first of all at the background knowledge in the simple view of writing. So the simple view of writing um, includes writing and transcription. Writing equals transcription and text generation, or text generation times transcription is skilled writing. And I just want to point out there to which I will talk about this, that executive function actually underpins all of this. So the text generation part of writing depends on what the student knows. So you can already see the link to background knowledge there about the topic, the vocabulary, sentence structure, and how to organize ideas. So we can't generate the text if we haven't got knowledge to draw on, okay? And that is when you are most likely to have that little saying, I don't know what to write, okay? So let's have a little check in with the executive function as well. So executive function is basically your brain's management system. It helps us to plan, focus, remember instructions. It also helps us to control our behavior. Um, so when we're talking about students, think about starting tasks, staying on task, checking work when we're done. So all of those are executive functions. And so when we're talking about writing, when we're looking at transcription, so that is actually getting the words down onto the page. So of course, executive function will underpin handwriting, spelling, and typing. And in terms of text generation, it will be turning the ideas into sentences and paragraphs. So executive function basically manages the writing process. So even if a student has good ideas, they might struggle to actually get the full piece of writing done if executive function skills are weak. So that's right, that is important to understand about executive function. And here we have the simple view of reading. So it was originally called the simple view of reading. So decoding times language comprehension equals reading comprehension or skilled reading. And then later it was amended to the not so simple view of reading because again, we are looking at the role of executive function and how this actually underpins it as well. So just reading off the screen here, even if a student can decode words, they won't understand the text if they lack the language comprehension side, which includes the background knowledge. Okay, background knowledge on vocabulary, grammar, and reasoning. And how many times have we had students that have read text and then have no idea what they've read because they don't actually understand the vocabulary that we're reading? And background knowledge fuels this comprehension. So this is why, again, why I wanted to pop in this literacy study. So in terms of the birds, if a student knows what a bird is or what extinction means, they can more easily connect and understand a text on endangered species. And not only this, they can then take that prior knowledge, of what it means for something to be extinct, or what a bird is, or what it means to be flightless or nocturnal or predator. They can actually apply those pieces of knowledge to any text about a bird in the future. And this is the key idea behind background knowledge. So in terms of executive function, working memory helps a student hold on to what they've just read, helps them make sense of the information. We've got our attention control, the focus while we're reading, cognitive flexibility, adjust when meaning isn't clear, and we've also got that planning and self-monitoring. So executive function is also really important to for more complex tasks. Okay, so if a student can't grasp what they've read, then they're not going to be able to comprehend it. Okay, and now I didn't actually put this in the beginning. Actually did add this slide in because I wanted to talk a little bit about the Matthew effect and what that means with background knowledge as well. So a lot of people might be, especially in the literacy world, might be familiar with the Matthew effect. So the Matthew effect in literacy refers to the idea that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So this basically means that students who tend to learn to read early will build stronger vocabulary, grow in confidence, whilst those who struggle early often fall further and further behind. So basically, students that can read are exposed to richer vocabulary, so they build their background knowledge across many areas. Then they can understand better what they're reading. They can then apply that knowledge across other fields as well. But our struggling readers, because they can't access the same vocabulary, might miss out on key content knowledge areas. They're not able to apply that knowledge because they don't know it. And then basically they're missing out on key learning because of the fact that they haven't mastered reading early on. So, again, how does this relate to the students that I'm teaching? Well, a lot of the time I'm teaching neurodiverse students and students that are already falling behind. And so for me, it's not only am I teaching them reading, writing, and spelling, but I also want to make sure that um, that I'm supporting them with building their background knowledge because by the time they're getting to me in year three, they've already missed out on such a lot of rich vocabulary that they might not have been able to access through reading, and especially by the time that they're getting to me in year four, five, and six. And so I wanted to try and to build that knowledge. So basically, background knowledge is the fuel that makes comprehension and writing easier. And that was one of the things that I felt passionate about. So I'm just going to stop the share for a minute because I did also want to talk about the fact that before I started doing this bird study, I had actually tried to build the knowledge. At the beginning of the year, I had started introducing more authentic text based around an idea or concept with a phonics rule or a morpheme rule that we had been using. And so, for example, if we were learning about the morpheme duct, which means to lead or carry, I wrote a text about the role of the conductor. And then for me, that was a way of building some background knowledge. But then I realized that I was only working on this background knowledge in really small chunks and just here, there, and everywhere. And it was very disjointed and very mishmash. One week we learn about the role of the conductor. The next week we might be learning about the importance of flexibility. And I just sort of felt that nothing really gelled, hence why I thought maybe a literacy integration study would work. So anyway, back to the slideshow. Right, so we were on the Matthew effect. And so, right, let's get into planning the big idea. So, I chose a high interest and knowledge rich theme, New Zealand birds, partly because I also wanted to choose something that I felt like I had a little bit of background knowledge in, and I felt really confident with teaching. Because this was going to be very, very new and very different compared to what I normally teach, I wanted to make sure that I felt confident and comfortable as well. So hence New Zealand birds. So I then decided to frame the study around about 4 weeks. Again, I wasn't sure how it was going to go, and so I thought that 4 weeks was something quite good to aim for. It wasn't going to be disjointed and done quickly, but it wasn't going to drag on and on, which meant that I would possibly lose engagement or motivation. And so then I put together sort of four key questions. What are some of New Zealand's key native birds? How do these key native New Zealand birds survive? What birds are endangered? We've got a couple of endangered birds in New Zealand, and which New Zealand birds are now extinct. Now, the cool thing that I didn't realize was that when we got to the extinct birds, which are the moa and the haast eagle. And I apologize. Oh, no, I've got it. The name in Te Reo Māori for the haast eagle is actually the poakai. I was actually able to weave in a little bit of Māori legend. Now, this is not something that I explicitly taught, but I was able to pop that in there for my students, which also, if we think about the New Zealand curriculum, weaving in Māori legend is also important and is part of my teaching. So the other thing that I want to talk about with planning the big idea is that I also use generative AI. So I'm a sole trader. I work for myself. I don't employ anybody. And so ChatGPT support is a little bit like the personal assistant that I need to help me with all of the work that I do. Otherwise, I just simply wouldn't be able to do it. So I use ChatGPT support to help me draft the unit themes, curate the bird facts, and we're going to talk further about this, but ChatGPT also designed and scaffolded text for different year levels and fluency levels. Okay, so how did I align the literacy? Actually, let's just go back really quickly because I did have a couple of bullet points down here. So each week built on the last, which deepened the background knowledge in every lesson. I just want to make that clear that I am a reading, writing, and spelling tutor. So every lesson connected either phonics or morphology, or phonics and morphology. And we had reading, writing, and spelling within the weekly thing. Okay, aligning the literacy components. So, as I just mentioned, I worked through a phonics scope and sequence. I am IMSLE trained and accredited. I'm part of the Australian Dyslexic Association. I follow their scope and sequence. I do tweak it every now and then depending on where my learner sits. So yeah, I have a phonics sequence, scope and sequence. I also work through my own morphology scope and sequence. And I also have my own writing craft scope and sequence. And I will talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on. So I want to make sure that I was still working through a scope and sequence. But as you know, every group has different needs. So I had to make sure that I was setting this, and this is where ChatGPT just really was integral with doing this, that as I worked through, it actually focused on what we were doing. So for example, if I had a year 3 to 4 group that was learning the owl spelling as in now, how, brown, brow, then my phonics, my spelling component would have focused on that. My text will then contain words with that owl spelling in it. Okay, and same with the suffix y. Um, or if I'm working with slightly older students who need those multisyllable words, and that's where I'm working my morphology as well, then we'll work on a morphology component, learn that explicitly, do our spelling, but then our reading will contain words relating to our bird theme that also fit in with the morphology sequence. So with year 10, we have a lot more focus on essay structure. So for example, introductions, and we took again that morphology aspect or that phonics aspect and popped it into those essay structures. So my generative AI support was supporting with generating these targeted, it says decodable friendly, but there's authentic texts tailored to the reading needs of my students. So they are, when it says decodable friendly, anything that can be read is decodable. But these were authentic texts, but they were specifically tailored to the group that I was working with. So, for example, if I'm working with a year 10 who has the reading fluency of a 7-year-old, I'm actually going to produce a text that has still got rich vocabulary and still upholds the student's mana and well-being, but is friendly enough that he is going to be, or she is going to be able to read that and still feel the sense of achievement and confidence. Okay, so that's where we have that decodable friendly. So in terms of the sequence of the lessons, we still did the date, we still do our phoneme, grapheme, sound pack or morphology deck. We would still work on a review skill with spelling and a new skill with spelling. And then once our reading came in, our reading will be around the birds and also our spelling, and the writing then component then obviously reflects back on the text. Okay, so here we go. Writing craft integration. How did it work? So I follow my own writing scope and sequence, and I've developed this over around about a year, and I draw a lot of my writing. Um, Oh, what's the word? I'm at a loss for it. I'm heavily influenced by the writing revolution, and you probably noticed that with some of the things that I share online, but I'm heavily influenced by the writing revolution. I'm quite heavily influenced by Joan Sedita, who created the writing rope and wrote Keys to Literacy. And I've got a lot of influence from the Syntax project, which was put together by a group of passionate Australian teachers. And I now believe is on the Oka Education site. So if I remember, I'll try and pop all of this together for you. But I have pretty much put a scope and sequence together that focuses on teaching my students what they've missed out on, foundational skills that they might have missed out on. Um, uh, as slow as I can to coin a term, but as quickly as I must. And it may mean that I am teaching some students adjectives and adverbs and the four types of sentence, or it might mean that I jump straight in. Oh, and a little bit of think SRSD, and I might jump straight in with a just statement, okay, depending on where my students are. So, depending on where students were in the scope, I worked on the writing craft. So, I will use sentence stems, I'll use visual scaffolds and printable activities to guide writing. And I specifically use ChatGPT to support me with creating sentence starters, planning templates and PDF activities for each writing skill, and it matched to the reading content. So, for example, if we had just read about some endangered birds, and I think the endangered birds we looked at were the fairy tern and the kiwi, and I was teaching conjunctions, I would give ChatGPT a prompt like, please can you create 4 sentence stems that use the conjunctions and, but, because, and so in a one page that relates to the text that we have just read in a one-page PDF format. So that is how I will create a lot of my templates. And it gives me access to good sentence stems. I'm not having to think too much. I can focus on the teaching, and then what I've taught the students, they've got it to go home for home learning. So we had authentic text that was especially put together, tailored to the needs of the student. Weekly sound or morpheme focus, and also our writing craft skill was woven in. So let's now take a look at the text development and differentiation. So each week, I created authentic informational text for every week. Now, as we know, we had the 4 weeks, which were introducing some New Zealand birds. How do they survive? Some endangered birds within New Zealand, and this week I'm looking forward to it. We're getting into the endangered, and that's how we were able to build in the Māori legend. So these texts background knowledge, built on background knowledge. So we introduced some knowledge, and then each week we built on it. And then the really cool thing was that we got around to reusing this high frequency vocabulary. So like we had words like predator and conservation and habitat coming up all the time. We had some really cool conversations about, oh, what are the predators in New Zealand? What does conservation mean? What does habitat mean? So we had some really great oral language going on with being able to use this high frequency vocabulary. And again, we use these targeted morphology and phonics or phoneme grapheme correspondences within these texts. And I supported my struggling readers with simplified versions. And I was very explicit with my instructions when I was popping this into my chat GPT that we still want to withhold the mana and just still work on that self-belief. Um, and I've got a lot of students that are perhaps a little bit older, but they're reading with 100% fluency or 98% fluency, so they can access these higher level texts. They're just reading more slowly. So, why would I not want to introduce them to these higher level thought processes and the vocabulary and the ideas? Yeah, so anyway, and we adapted the tone and I adapted the length based on fluency and age. So ChatGPT helped me with generating level text, rewrote for fluency, added suffix, prefix, integration. Now, look, even included humour or cultural relevance where needed. Be careful of the humour because ChatGPT's humour is not the same as our humour. So, for example, you do need to read your text very, very carefully because there was one text that was generated where it told me that the Kiwis' flightless wings were a joke. And like, ha 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 ha, my goodness, for every New Zealander here, we would just be flabbergasted. No, so just be very wary. Read what you're producing because you don't want to be producing something that is not authentic. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, year 3 to 4 simple text, year 6, again going up a little bit, and year 10, focusing more on that rich vocabulary. And really for the older students, we're also focusing on the bigger picture ideas. Um, and yeah, we will talk a little bit, well, hopefully we can talk a bit about that as well. And yeah, just a little bit more on creating these companion resources. So, for example, this was mostly around my writing. Oh, I just noticed I've left a little sharing best practice logo up there. Obviously recycling my backgrounds here. Right, so creating companion resources. So time and sequence writing sheets, compare and contrast Venn diagrams, emphasis and conjunction practice, essay planning templates. Again, sort of as long as your prompts are really good in ChatGPT, there's kind of like no limit to what you can produce. You can create some Venn diagram prompts that have or are already pre-filled, or you can create blank ones. And again, just make sure that what you're generating aligns with what you're teaching. And because sometimes if you're not really clear, ChatGPT can take a few liberties and you just need to be a little bit careful about that. But yeah, my companion resources specifically revolved around that writing area as well. And that's where, like with my writing scope and sequence, I know exactly where I am and what I'm teaching, and it's quite easy to go in there and do that. Okay, so here we are monitoring student engagement and growth. So, as I've mentioned several times, I'm in week 4. So, but what have I noticed? Students have absolutely loved this theme and they've remembered details from week to week. And it's what another thing that's actually been really interesting is that some students came in with a reasonably strong degree of background knowledge about New Zealand birds. So obviously some of them had already had an interest in them and they could tell me facts about some of the birds that I didn't know, which ended up being a really, really awesome learning experience for me as well. Um, some of the students really started to feel quite passionate about predators. the role of us as kaitiako, as guardians, which was also really amazing. And some of them were quite taken with the beauty of the birds. So that was really awesome. The other really cool thing was that there was less writing resistance. Okay, so when we have a text that is engaging and meaningful, and we have built some knowledge around it, then asking students to turn around and write me something about it um, was easy. If I had to, I'm actually just going to grab something. And I'm just going to stop the share again so I can show you this. Um, so here we have got this beautiful picture here of a kiwi and a tui. So some of our writing was compare and contrast. So for older students, we had it in an essay style, but for younger students, our compare and contrast used our change of direction words, which are just up there. And all I needed to do was select down this picture, and I had students coming out with these amazing sentences, putting in words like however and on the other hand, and joining them and comparing the Kiwi and the Tui. So, in terms of less writing resistance, that was just amazing. We also had things like, a day in the life of a Tui or a day in the life of a Kiwi. Um, uh, Again, the because we had built a little bit about this background knowledge, and we talked about stoats and predators and conservationists, then they could imagine a day in the life. And some of them were getting quite creative with, fending off stoats and having punching matchups with possums and things like that. So it brought just this sense of enjoyment. So again, we started learning these new words like predator, habitat, extinct, conservation. And these words were retained and applied, which was really awesome. How do I spell predator? What were the predators again? And then we were able to also have really cool conversations about, domestic cats and what role they play with some of our New Zealand birds. And what I also found that with my older students, we started having these really deep discussions, okay, about colonization, ecology, and responsibility, and the conundrum between humans are the biggest problem when it came to endangered birds, but humans are also the biggest solution. And so these really cool conversations about essays, problem versus solution, and how further education about bird conservation can lead to a greater responsibility as a human being. Um, and yeah, so I just thought that the insightfulness that came out with some of my older students was very encouraging. So how did I use ChatGPT with this? Helped each group's materials maintain that structured and purposeful theme. And quite honestly, like it wasn't overwhelming in prep time for me. Okay, so I'm using generative AI like a little personal assistant. Can you please just write me a text about this? This is my student. They're in year 10. They've got the reading fluency of a 7-year-old. I want to um, uphold and maintain their confidence and their well-being. My ChatGPT is trained to understand words like mana. Therefore, we were able to generate a text that ticks all those boxes. Um, Students who usually dreaded the writing component were contributing, predicting, and discussing. Yeah, like really, some really inspiring um, growth there. Oh, and one thing that I do want to talk about actually was that I was really worried that I was going to be completely bored teaching the same thing for 7 lessons throughout the day, an entire week, 31 lessons of New Zealand's keyboards. But I kid you not, it was so not boring. It was so not boring. Yeah, I definitely think it's helped me become a better teacher. Okay, so we're nearly at the end. Let's have a little chat about the role of generative AI. So don't be afraid of ChatGPT. Um, it helped me create these authentic text by theme, year level, and target word pattern. But I do want to really stress that you need to make sure that you're reading that text because sometimes it can get a bit silly. And also, if you do ask it to put in some humor, um, it doesn't really quite understand the role of humor, the concept of humor. So, yeah, you just need to be a little bit careful about that. So I was also able to create some printable PDFs and scaffolds. I've already got quite a lot of my own stuff that I've created, but this just helped me create some really quick, snappy stuff that meant that my planning time was still within that sort of 10 to 15 minutes that I allow for each lesson. I was able to adjust those texts with fluency and also some writing prompts and support sheets. Yeah, like I can't come up with everything all the time. I don't have anyone to bounce ideas off. I don't have anyone sitting there that can give me some tips and things, and so that's where I found it quite encouraging and quite really well, just good to use the role of generative AI. So I've talked your ears off. Personal reflection. Where, honestly, I would do this over and over again, and I'm actually going to be starting a new text unit. For the final 4 weeks of term, I've reached out to the parents of the students I'm supporting, and the general seems to be that they want to learn a little bit about the ocean. So it's really cool. Was able to pop in that really authentic content. Okay. As you could see, it related to New Zealand. I was also in this week, I will be able to weave in a little bit of Māori legend. And as I say, my students will go home with some Māori legend. I'm not going to explicitly teach that, but they will go home. So for me, that's important to be able to weave that through. We had language rich texts and tasks, which then prompted so much oral language and the ability to have a deeper understanding, and especially for my older students, some of those key things that they need to be thinking about, that higher level thinking. The scaffolded literacy worked really well. And I know that possibly for some of this unit study, I did apply quite a lot of scaffolding, but I know that the next time we do it, I can hand the reins over a little bit more. I can do a little bit more of that gradual release. And I just loved that high relevance and the repetition that we were able to build with it. Yeah, for me, that was really awesome. So yeah, so the main thing, themed literacy, I'm just looking at my notes here. Themed literacy studies worked beautifully and the students love them. And the background knowledge or the integration between background knowledge and the structured literacy is a incredibly powerful combination. I'll be definitely be building more 4 week themes. And there are so many things to do. Like you've got New Zealand volcanoes, and gosh, I was watching something last night, and Rangitoto up in Auckland is a volcano, but it's also a predator-free island. So how cool is that to be able to then talk about something like New Zealand's volcanoes, but then weave in some of this background knowledge we have about what it means to be a predator-free island. I mean, I just think, isn't that just why you teach? And as I say, we're going to be looking at the sea, and I can also weave in a little bit of Māori myth and legend with that as well, which I feel excited about. Um, and yeah, so I do plan on sharing some more resources and templates based on what I've put together. Um, but yeah, there is only me, so as you know, that sort of takes time. But anyway, I hope you've really enjoyed this. I don't know how long I've been talking for. Hopefully, I've kept your interest and engagement throughout the course of this little webinar. I will be putting this up on YouTube. I will be putting this up free, and I welcome you to connect with me in the comments if you feel like there is anything that you think needs further explanation, or if you feel like you had a burning question that was raised from that. I'm always willing to help out and support. And if you feel like there's anything that I didn't quite get right, then I'm a learner as well, and I would love to hear your thoughts. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy, and I hope to be able to do one of these again.